Okay, Anne-Marie Zajdlik, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Adam. It's great to be here and see you again.
It's great to see you too. Um, I didn't plan it this way, but we do have breaking Green Party news as we're
I know.
recording.
I know. Yeah.
The debate commission has decided that the Green Party is going to be excluded from the two leaders' debates, which are as we're recording tonight and tomorrow night.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts about this development as a Green candidate yourself, and who has been a part of so many debates already here locally?
Yes. So I've got emails coming in from the party faithful right now. And I just reached out to Mike Morris, who's out canvassing because he does that so well. He's going to get back to me. But I think what it gets down to is proportional representation. And that's one of the main things I wanted the opportunity to speak about. In 2015, the Green Party had 500,000 votes across the country, which would have given them 20 seats in Parliament. And instead, we're struggling to attend debates. So rules are the rules. I'm going to figure out today what happened and whether we can reinstate some of those candidates because we did have a full slate of candidates or enough candidates to actually be parts of the debates. I'm sure everyone, all of my colleagues who are working hard to figure out a solution. But proportional representation is one of the answers.
You raise an interesting point that I think I've been struggling with as a political observer in
Yeah.
this election, which is that there really hasn't been room to talk about Canadian issues
Hmm.
and some
Hmm.
of the broader systemic issues. It's kind of been, as sadly like a side of our times, kind of all Trump-based campaign. Um, has that been true out there on the campaign trail for you as well?
Absolutely. So it's the number one concern. I think if we all did a bit of a poll ourselves, we would, the candidates out there walking from door to door would say that that is the number one concern is tariffs and needing to vote strategically because we have decided which leader will be the best to fight Donald Trump. That puts aside some of the major issues, dangerous emergency issues that we are not dealing with. And I'm very fearful that whichever government gets a mandate to lead will not focus on major, possibly catastrophic issues like climate change.
How have you developed sort of like tools and talking points to try and break through that clutter? Because I mean, it's on the news every night. It's a
Mhm.
topic like when I'm at work, it's a topic of conversation. Maybe because I work at the service desk and the newspapers are right there, so it's right
Right.
there in black and white for everyone to see.
Yeah.
But the world is bigger than Donald Trump. At least I still hope it is. And is there a message you've discovered that sort of helps get past his bigness on all things?
Yeah, so my riding is a bit unique because we have Mike Schreiner, who's the leader of the Green Party of Ontario, who won by a landslide in February. And so our community is green. And we are telling people at the doors that if you allow a green MP to work with a green MPP, we become a powerhouse, along with a green MP in Kitchener and a green MPP in Kitchener. It's literally a green powerhouse. And we need a green powerhouse to address some of the most important issues in Canada. We're also telling people that you don't need to vote strategically because it looks like the Liberals will head towards a majority. And in Guelph, in particular, you can vote for the candidate that best represents your values. And because we are a green community, that's the green candidate, which means it's me.
I want to just drill a bit deeper on that for a sec because I would concur Mike Schreiner won handily, if
Hmm.
not thoroughly. Um,
Hmm.
it was like the provincial election that we just had felt sort of like no matter what people's personal feelings about Doug Ford were, it was like, well, he's a known quantity. We know what to expect with Doug Ford. We can stay the
Safe.
course. Yeah.
Yep. And we
Yeah.
need safety in these times of trouble. We need safety. Yep.
That's exactly right. And I think that translated to our local level with Mike Schreiner. We know what to expect with Mike Schreiner. He
Right.
has done great things.
Yeah.
This election's a bit different. Open seat, no
Mhm.
incumbent technically. We have an incumbent party, but no incumbent. So any any one of you is kind of like an unknown quantity, you or
Hmm.
Dominique or Gorver.
Janice. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Gerber. Yeah, yeah,
Michael Waslin, I hesitate to say, but
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I guess how do you promote uh I guess people putting like safety on your I guess safety may be the wrong word, but like make how do you promote you as the safe choice in the midst of all this uncertainty, especially when it would be an incredibly unique circumstance like Guelph would endorse not just a federal green representative,
Hmm.
um, but after I would also say, 30 some odd years of liberal representation as well.
Hmm. I've been criticized for this by the liberals because what I want to put in place in Guelph is seen as fairly idealistic. But I believe in community-based action to solve major problems. And that is what makes me different from the other candidates. What I'd like to see in Guelph is a community hub. We're calling it a green hub. It's a vision that I have that can definitely be put into place, a health hub that includes a primary care practice. It's my expanded primary care practice that will bring in some of the 56,000 people in Guelph area that will be without primary care next year. I so want to talk about that. And also a climate action hub. So 15% of Canadians, only 15% see climate change as the most important issue. And that is so on point given the fact that we're going to have difficulty with surviving over the next while. A lot of people will have difficulty making ends meet. So more than ever, because our federal government has not been on point with climate action, we need Guelph to be the example across the country. A climate hub would educate the population about good education about climate change and how urgent the issue is and practical steps that we can take to reduce our emissions as individuals. And then the center of that hub, which is very different, is the constituency office, which will be manned with social workers that can reach out into the community and connect people with the services available to them as they begin to struggle. It's community-based action, and then fighting like mad in Ottawa to poke the government in power to do the right thing for Canadians, right? Which an independent voice that's not whipped, a Green Party voice, is able to do. And I'm really able to scream when I get angry about how people are not being treated well.
It sounds like you're talking to like a radical new approach to your job as a member of parliament.
Hmm.
So it's not just like if I go to your constituency office and there's one person there, the admin assistant, and I guess I want to rewind a bit because I think you laid out a pretty big vision there. So, um,
Is it a big vision, though, when you think about it? So, a member of parliament is a public servant. What does
right.
my community need? This is what my community needs right now in this time of trouble. And so, as an activist, a proven activist who has big visions and those big visions get put into place, I don't think this is an unreasonable approach at all. I think we should all be creating constituency offices that are mandated and working hard to serve the community in a major public way, visible public way.
Well, when you're talking about like making it like a community hub and a health hub,
Yes.
like what
Yes.
specifically are you talking about? Like if I come to your office, regardless of what I'm looking for, what do I see when I come in?
Okay, so much like my campaign office, I've been walking around the campaign office thinking to myself, this is exactly the kind of energy I want to be in my constituency office. Young people who are working hard to fight against the major issues that we're dealing with. Coming into the office, it's inviting. There is coffee, there is food. But one part of the hub is a clinic where people can come and get primary care. That's massive. That is so massive, right? 56,000 who will, I can't even fathom how people will cope without primary care. And then that climate hub is key because it can set an example for how every community can tackle climate change one community at a time right across the country. This is very doable. I used to say this about raising $1 million for an HIV clinic in Africa. It was doable. And guess what? We did it.
Um, I guess where would that funding come from? Have you thought that far ahead, like in terms of like actualizing this? Because I know that MP offices are like those budgets are kind of regulated? Is it well, I guess how would you intend on funding that?
So of course, there's the MP office, both one in Ottawa and one in Guelph. The primary care clinic, well, it's actually going to be funded by the funds I am paid to run a clinic.
Mm.
Um, there are primary care hubs starting across the province. Jane Philpott is putting those into place, and I hope the clinic that I'm building will not only be run with my OHIP billings, but also with funding that comes through her program with the provincial government. The Climate Action Hub, I'm gonna raise funds for it. I can raise funds, and I think it will be manned with volunteers because it will be such an energizing, hopeful place for people to be. It'll be run by a group of advisors that I already have in place. They're also volunteers. They're climate experts. They can talk to us about what the most important issues are around climate change. I think this is a vital necessity, and I'll be able to reach into the community and philanthropists to fund it. So that piece will be fundraised.
So you, from the sound of it, you want to be politician doctor or doctor politician.
Hell, wouldn't that be wonderful if all politicians, including our ruling party, whichever the one ends up ruling, it'll likely be liberal, it will be liberal, if their focus is healing, because we are really struggling like never before, and we have a planet that's struggling. The liberals right now, after 10 years, have really disappointed us. We're the bottom of the G7 countries in terms of reduction in our climate emissions. There are two top countries, Germany being one, that have reduced their emissions by 60%. That fills me with great hope. So there are countries leading the charge. Americans will not be leading the charge for the next little while. Canada can be a rising star in terms of climate action, and we need that. This is a very dangerous situation we're in with a short window where action can prevent catastrophe.
And I think the liberal candidate and a lot of her colleagues would argue that the party in the last 10 years has enjoyed success on the environment. I know a lot of people would probably, including yourself, would probably speak differently to that. But
Yes,
um,
yeah.
in terms of, we saw what happened with the carbon tax.
Mhm.
Um, it's technically conservative policy. It was Preston Manning's idea, or at least he
Yep,
co-signed it.
yep.
It just seems like the practical realities of what a climate transition looks like. I think a lot of people you talk to them just like on the face of it, person to person, yes, we need more climate action, but it seems to hit a wall when it comes to seeing it in action, when it comes to seeing like the extra couple of cents at the gas pump, and then partisans start blaming high grocery prices on the carbon tax. I guess how do you bring that optimism and how do you bring the benefits of real climate action to a constituency? I don't mean that Guelph necessarily as a writing,
Yeah,
but
right,
just generally a country that feels like they've been burned by climate action in
right,
terms of like seeing it in higher prices, they think.
right. Well, there's a blueprint to resolving the climate crisis, and it is well informed. One of the blueprints that we can read is John Dewar's book called Speed and Scale. And he talks about how inexpensive putting the major processes in place that will fight climate change. Carbon tax, yeah, it was politicized. We need to make sure that our focus on climate change and the way we fund it does not become politicized. I see the federal government as the parents, the provincial government as the grown adults, and the rest of us as the youth in the house. And if the house is burning down, you don't continue eating breakfast in the kitchen. You get people out of the kitchen and put water all over the house. You put the fire out. So if you had a federal government that was focused on reducing emissions and did not politicize the issues, did not have a government that was attacking them constantly in the House. That's why I think we need a majority government this time around. You have to do it. It's not a matter of, okay, it can't be done, so we won't do it. You must do it. It's like wartime. You have to fight. In World War II, there was no option, and the leaders stepped up to win World War II. This is like wartime. Leaders need to step up and stop saying that climate change is not an issue because our population, our citizens, our constituents don't see it as a major issue. Well, you're the parents. Put the fire out.
I appreciate your analogy, but I would also point out that World War II had to get really bad before the
Yes.
parents, Russia
I
and the
know.
US decided to
Yes.
get involved.
Yes. That's what's terrifying, right? That's
Right.
what's terrifying. And I think your greatest ammunition is your human resource, your greatest defense, your greatest attack. I'm not very good at war words, but um, you have to rally the troops. And the troops are you and I and everyone across the country. And that's the reason why we need something like a climate hub that rallies young people. So my generation may think, oh man, it's over. I'm glad I'm 20 years away from death or 5 years away from death, which is what I'm hearing at the door. I'm a grandparent and I'm glad I've only have a few more years left on the planet, but I'm
Mm,
terrified for my grandchildren.
mm,
Okay, we can take that. I don't accept it at all, which is why I'm not retiring. I'm moving into politics, right? But there are many young people in this country who want hope. We mobilize those young people. We put pressure on governments to do the right thing. We present a blueprint that's affordable because there is one. It's too complex to deal with or to talk about in a short interview. But this is very possible. You need the right leaders in the right place at the right time. Now's the time for the Green Party. Yes, it may be struggling, but now is the time for the Green Party and Green MPs.
hmm Well, I think we really kind of vetted the environmental issue too. We've touched a
Yes,
bit on
yes,
healthcare.
yeah.
But I mean, I'm not sure healthcare has been the major issue that perhaps you would want it to be. Perhaps I
No,
would want to be this election
yeah.
too. So, I mean, I guess what, given your experience, what is the current state of healthcare, and what do you, I mean, I guess how do you want to make it more of a priority before the election closes?
I think that sorry, hold on. Uh, so healthcare, again, people will say, I hear the Liberal candidate constantly saying that, well, healthcare is a provincial issue. All right, go back to the parent analogy. The federal government, they're the parents. They can make sure that funding they give to provinces and territories are used for what they're supposed to be. There are no accountability measures in place. The Canada Health transfer goes to provinces, and then our provincial government uses those funds for something else. Mike Schreiner talks all the time about the fact that healthcare dollars are being diverted. So we need to reform the Canada Health Act. This may not be a top issue at the doors, but it's second. Uh,
Hmm.
it's definitely second because parents are worried about not being able to have their children vaccinated. One woman said, where do I go in the middle of the night or during the day when my child has an ear infection, right? The basics are not there. It's going to reduce our life expectancy. So my idea is, along with Jane Philpott, to reform the Canada Health Act, to put accountability measures in place, to put a primary care health act and a mental health and addictions act under the umbrella of the Canada Health Act, and make sure that the provinces and territories have to resource primary care, put structures in place that make every Canadian or give every Canadian access to primary care. And we have so failed in the arena of mental health and addictions. The Canada Health Act has not been reformed since 1984. It gives funds to physicians' offices, hospitals, and dental surgeries. We're a much more complex population than we were in 1984. We've aged. There have been societal pressures that have increased mental health issues and addictions. This needs to be done, and I think I think it's a simple fix. Actually, it's constitutional, but it
Hmm.
has to be done, and I think everyone's going to agree with that. So that's one of the main things I'm going to fight for in Ottawa.
You've kind of talked about this a bit, moving into a political sphere as opposed to a healthcare sphere.
Mhm.
Um, what have you learned through the course of this campaign that about the I guess the art of politics and the art of um, campaigning, and how might you take that and use that, whether you end up being the MP of Guelph or you end up having to go back to your day job and activism. I guess what have you learned about politics running for office?
So first of all, I admire candidates now, political candidates. They have a lot of courage to jump into this sphere. It's a tremendous amount of work. It's 14 hours a day. Campaigning is very difficult. But being an MP is being a public servant, and being a physician is also being a public servant. So, what I've come to understand is people need to be listened to. They need to hear about real solutions. They need to know they're being cared for. And so I bring those skills to the door. And it took me a while to figure out that's what I needed to do, but it comes naturally to me to do that. So actually, I think physicians fit really well and caregivers fit really well in the political realm.
Hmm. We've covered a lot of ground in this in this interview, but I do like to ask every candidate because sometimes there's an issue that doesn't necessarily get talked about, doesn't necessarily make the briefing or the policy books. And um, for you, given everything that we've talked about so far, is there an issue that you want to make sure you address during this election? Maybe something you don't get asked a lot about, but is personally important to you.
Oh yeah, that's easy. So the Liberal government failed us. 10 years ago, they were elected because they promised electoral reform. And we need proportional representation so that we don't become a two-party system, which is actually what's happening right now. And I think the people in this country, as evidenced by the number of people who don't vote for the party that takes power, 60% or more have other values or other needs, other desires, other things that they want to see happen, and they're not being listened to. That is so important that we put in place proportional representation. I think we need to also consider a guaranteed livable income. There's a huge gap now between the wealthy and those that struggle, with 1 million Ontarians living under the poverty line. That's not acceptable.
Mm,
And there are answers for that problem as well. And one of them is a very affordable guaranteed livable income. It's $84 billion a year to legislate poverty right now, to keep people in poverty. That's not acceptable. And I want to see people become strong and resilient so they can stand up and fight against major issues like climate change. If you're struggling to put food on the table, you can't listen to anything else. You can't be involved in anything else except survival.
mm, hmm. It's tough to make those connections though, right? Because I think I see this a lot in the community. And just to think it's to tackle something I've been thinking about this week. Um, I see it a lot on the Guelph subreddit. Like it's almost like once or twice a week somebody pops up and says like, "How can I find a job?" Like they're
Yeah.
struggling to find a job in Guelph.
hmm
And
hmm
I mean, you and I sort of have the privilege to sort of think bigly and to borrow a phrase, and talk about some of these more systemic issues. But at the end of the day, there are people who are just struggling to get a paycheck so they can have a hope of
mm
keeping a roof over their head or having a
hmm
couple of meals a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess how do we connect the two? And I know you've talked a lot about connecting like the environment to affordability and all that too. But I mean, just like the basics, like if I if I can't find a job, maybe I don't care who's the MP.
Absolutely. Or you don't care that there's a federal election coming up
Sure.
on April 28th. So I have a lot of patients in my practice. A lot of them are refugees and immigrants who've come to this country on promises that were never provided. And some of them who ended up sleeping in tents last winter because they weren't given what they needed to survive: housing, a good job, the ability to put food on the table. And I think, again, I don't want to be repetitive, but if you had a guaranteed livable income that supported everyone who found themselves to be jobless or disabled or a senior who couldn't survive, if you are jobless, but you know you can put food on the table until you find work, or you know you can put food on the table so you can let your creative energy flow and create your own job or your own business. We're oppressing people in poverty. And that's just not acceptable as a wealthy country who prides themselves on being one of the leaders of the world. We're not. And we can look to other countries who are doing that, but we are not doing that.
Well, as we're talking here, early voting starts this weekend. Although
hmm
technically you can vote anytime at the returning office, which I know some people have been promoting as an opportunity. But as we're heading into the home stretch of the election, what do you have to do to keep putting points on the board?
I think the debates and interviews, we've had like four debates in a 48-hour time period. It's been punishing. But I think that will settle down. And my job now is going to be to get door to door, which I'm happy to do, and to also make phone calls. So just remind people of the green vote being the vote of the future. If we want to really tackle major problems and save our planet, we need a green party ruling, and that's one reason why I'm standing up. Let's start it right here and make it grow across the country.
And just maybe to bring this sort of full circle to the questions of leadership, the Green Party is unique because it has co-leaders at the top, Elizabeth
Mhm.
May and Jonathan uh, Parnot. Um, I guess speaking practically, if there were to be a sudden surge in perhaps a Green Party government, would they be co-prime ministers?
I know that's a really good question. You're being a bit silly, but yes,
I'm being a
um,
bit silly, but I mean,
I
honestly,
know,
I
but
think people
I
have that
know.
question.
That's a really good question. You know what? I have to look into that because I've heard a couple of people say, well, what does this mean? Will they be co-president? So there are green parties in other countries that have co-leadership. I think I can find the answer to that question because it's a really good one. What do you do? Do you choose one of the co-leaders to be prime minister and the other one is stepping aside and being a powerful MP? I don't know. There's probably an answer to that question, though.
It's probably an answer. I just wanted to put it out there. I wasn't sure if you had
Yes.
the answer, but
Yes. No, I don't have the answer. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, it speaks to like this is a unique time, and
Yeah.
we should be able to speak about unique opportunities in politics,
Hmm.
even with
Hmm.
giant orange-colored people yelling stuff in the
Yes.
basement, as it
Oh,
were.
yeah. In the basement. Okay, so what we do as parents when the house is burning, we get out, but we let the basement burn. Sorry, sorry. Did I say that? I said that.
I mean, it is where all the junk
You
is, but
you opened the door to that,
I did
Adam.
open the door. Well, before I let you go, the most essential question of this or any interview, where can people learn more about you or your campaign?
Votezadlik.ca is the best place to go. It's a
Could you spell
great
your last name too, just so people?
Z, Zaj, D as in Douglas, Lik,
Perfect.
votezadlik.ca. Great website, put together by TopSite, which is an amazing company filled with young people who are putting their heads together and trying to solve major issues in the world.
All right, good shout out for them. And good interview. So Anne Marie, just thank you for your time today, and good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Thanks, Adam. Have a great day. Take care.